Very good afternoon, everyone. Charles here, Frgnt Daily Chart Analysis. Fun Coupon Friday, 30th of January 2026, 1717. Taking a look, just wrapping up the day, to be quite honest. Just going through the chart, see what else there potentially is on the table. And more importantly, I have had an alert, unfortunately, go off for me going break even, or rather the trade is now stopped out at break even, I should say, most recently. And yeah, that's all she wrote, to be quite honest. What we'll see, I'm just going to enlarge that 15-minute time frame for you really to see the consistency in my approach. The same setup, in fact, pretty much identical. The Asia range setup presented itself as I was marking the charts this morning. Where were we this morning? Around about, let's call it 5 GMT or 5 UTC, I should say. Yeah, we had a very obvious snap in the market on that 15-minute time frame. The second question I'm then asking myself is, can I identify a 15-minute order block of where that snap came from? Of course I could. The only difference of the two, if you look at both comparisons, is this 15-minute order block was unfortunately absolutely enormous. Now, part of the Asia range criteria for Frgnt mastery is that if there is not a snap in London of Asia lows, so let me paint the picture for you. Asia stops here, or Asia finishes here. Here's Asia lows. And then part of the criteria, or one of the criteriums, is that London snaps Asia. Once London snaps Asia and there is a 1-minute order block up at those highs, and you're able to take that in terms of a limit order. However, the problem that we had today was within this 15-minute order block, there actually was not a 1-minute order block at all. In the entirety of that 15-minute order block, there was not a 1-minute order block. Therefore, what I was required to do was wait for a 1-minute break of structure. Now, as you can see, if I go down to the 1-minute time frame, apologies, there's a lot of candles to go back through. However, as price came up, tapped into the 15-minute order block, there's the clear rejection. I mean, when price got to here, I already identified that there was a break of structure on the 1 minute, and as you can see by that pre-drawn line, that I was then expecting price to come back up, tap into that imbalance, and off we go down to the lows. It wasn't to be, unfortunately. Price really did break multiple structure areas. That would even be on the 5-minute, to be quite honest, and then price came up into that area. Again, it was a bit unfortunate. If I go back to the 15-minute time frame, you'll be able to have a look at the dilemmas that I had compared to yesterday. In regards to that trade, I was actually able, with my stop loss placement, to cover everything that I was really concerned of to the left. Definitely not concerned about this. It's an Asia range setup, so the first order block above Asia. If it did cause that valid break of structure, then absolutely that is the criteria. So Asia then printed the first order block above Asia, of which I can see caused that break of structure to the left, came from the top there, breaking structure to the left. So of course, I would hope that there would be a 1-minute order block right there up at the highs. Unfortunately, there wasn't, meaning that, as I've just said, I had to wait for a break of structure. As price, again, unfortunately has to be the word to be used, broke structure here as opposing to continue to come up and then give me that break, pullback, imbalance. That then meant that my stop loss placement had to cover an area that I perceived in the market could be a reason why I would lose. Of course, there's always a reason to lose in trading, but for me, this area to the left was a very clear area for me in terms of where price could look to gravitate towards. Now, having said that, if I was able to, of course, place a position like so, if I get the correct model up, there lies a difference in risk-to-reward ratio, more in line with what I would actually expect for an Asia range trade, i.e. to the left here you can see we gained almost a 1 to 6, 1 to 5.9 or 5. So yeah, that was unfortunate. I mean, nevertheless, I took the trade in line with the trading strategy. Break of structure, 1-minute order block, took the sell limit, as you can see, as soon as price came back in there. And then, of course, we now are break even as a result of price moving away and doing exactly what it should do. Now, again, stop loss placement is one of those that after time, You know roughly, I mean, you can never really fully know where to place your stop loss. You can gain confidence and have a very good idea. As you can see here, my stop loss was just above the area of interest. Here, again, as I said, I did perceive this area as a point of interest in the market, regardless of there being no order block sat there at the top. A bit of improvisation had to go on, unfortunately. Again, the word unfortunately crept or creeps in. Nevertheless, what I'm pleased to say is I'm able to show you guys how my trading strategy very much so is, well, robotic. I don't deviate, I stick to the plan, and even when my own personal feelings about the trade is saying, risk reward ratio is slightly compromised here, your stop loss is slightly bigger than you'd actually want it to be. Nevertheless, once the criteria shows itself, so once the setup is identified all the way down here, as soon as you've had this snap in the market, you can identify the setups. That's issue number one solved. Where's the setup? And then your entry criteria that is vitally important. As I mentioned yesterday, also on US dollar CAD, I was very tempted to take a position from this area here, i.e., can I locate a valid 15-minute point of interest that broke structure? Absolutely, that looked clear as day for me. However, what was able to save me from a potential loss is my entry criteria, which is very strict. I need to see a valid break of structure on a lower time frame, i.e., that 1 minute time frame. If I cannot find it there, there's simply no trade. Within this higher 15-minute order block, however, there was indeed a 1 minute order block just there. And then as a result of that 1 minute shift, I took the trade and off we went for a 1 to 6. So again, exactly the same setup, exactly the same entry criteria, only simply the stop loss was slightly bigger. And it forced me, in fact, to go break even a lot sooner than I would have liked to. But nevertheless, that is trading. You never know what trade is going to be the one that will take profit. What I am a great advocate of is simply executing the position as robotically as you possibly can in order to save yourself from making trading errors and in order to have very accurate statistics. So, I take this position, they're journaled, they're absolutely identical. Of course, I'll have a side note here that, my stop loss was 36 pips, way too big. Way too big. I'll have to analyze that later on and say, is there anything I could have done? Could I have trusted that a little bit more? And then by the time price got down to that area, I wouldn't have, being honest, I would not have waited for Asia lows to have been filled. If I was able to get a 1 to 8 by there, then absolutely, I would definitely be in that position or something a little bit realistic above the middle of the GAN box. That also is something worth noting, that if I was able to place my stop loss to a sensible range, then I would have potentially been able to just come out of the market with a 3%, walk away and said job well done, and then price turns around and then we are break even. It is what it is. So it's just one of those to build the statistics for your own personal wealth, and never underestimate having your statistics when you are trading funds. There will always be a time where it's that lift conversation. You never know when you're in a lift with someone with more money than you do, and most certainly someone that is going to want to invest their funds. As soon as you become a profitable trader, let me assure you, there will be people, and I laugh because it's absolutely, it's phenomenal how much people are willing to allow you to trade their money once they recognize that you are a profitable trader. So always have your statistics on hand, if I can get that word out of my mouth. Always have your trading journal I should say, on hand, and even like something in line with what I do. Of course, just because I do it doesn't mean everyone else cannot. Here in essence is my trading journal. Here showcases videos, even now the video that I'm doing. This is essentially my trading journal. 47 pages, cannot be loaded unfortunately, but you'll see right from the start, 47 pages of just back-to-back analysis, day after day, week after week, quarter after quarter. If you're able to show somebody that, they'd be quite impressed, to be quite honest. And let me be an advocate of that, to really stand by your analysis, stand by your breakdown, stand by your statistics, your trading journal. And as soon as you are profitable, you will find that there will be an abundance of funds coming your way for you to have the stress as well as the pleasure to manage on behalf of people. So with that said, ladies and gents, thank you very much for your support over the course of the week and longer, I should say. I suppose the celebration is today that we have finally reached 1,000 followers. Congratulations to you all for taking advantage of free content. And as I say, for good example, if we look at US dollar CAD this morning, where are we? That's a couple of days ago. Let's refresh. Let's go back to page 1. You can have the certainty. I mean, for sure, there are some locked videos on here which I share directly with those in Frgnt Mastery. However, if I do look for the standard breakdown of US dollar CAD, if I did post this morning, which I'm almost certain that I did, bear with me, 29th, nothing on the 30th. So 6 hours ago, 9 hours ago, 10 hours ago. GU, GCAD, AU. That's that out the window. US dollar CAD, I must have been more direct with my group, and I did not post that for you all to take a free advantage of. But nevertheless, you can have the absolute certainty that when I do post anything on my TradingView in terms of analysis, I absolutely do stand by my analysis and I trade in line with it. And that is part of the reason why I post it. I mark my charts up every day anyway, so why not share the love? And 1,000 of you feel the need to follow and have an update every time I post something, every time I'm rambling on a video. So I'm very grateful for that support and that level of attention from fellow traders. It most certainly does mean a lot. I mean, while I'm here, we'll take a deeper look, or just a quick look, I should say, in terms of what I'm looking for at the moment. I mean, it definitely is a bit too late for me personally to be taking positions on a Friday. However, it goes without saying that this most certainly is a good looking position that I was looking to take quite aggressively if price got here within my trading hours. That would have been a 1 minute break of structure, and I'll simply have taken the trade up to Asia highs, of which is available, further Asia highs available, and knowing that the 4-hour 50 EMA is down here and price is trending above, I'm absolutely expecting a rejection from that 4-hour 50 EMA. And then my next target, if I zoom up, it's got these Asia ranges that are yet to be filled. So perhaps if there is no movement today, then certainly one to watch for Monday morning. If not, a break of all structures here, pull back into imbalance followed by a continuation. Be very interested in that Monday morning. Alternatively, if this doesn't hold, then a trade via this daily 50 MA is most certainly looking nice. Just to go down through AU then at this time. The large note telling me exactly what not to do. No high time frame, long position due to weekly order block. So unfortunately, it's quite confusing. I do agree when looking at some of my charts that if you're not understanding the colors of my order blocks in relation to the time frame, I do completely understand the confusion. But this weekly, this grey, humongous GAN box is coming from that weekly time frame. What can be very confusing, even me coming to my charts, is forgetting that price is actually, I can't forget that price is trending above that time frame, but what's also important to recognize is there is, on this weekly time frame, there are 5 hours and 28 minutes left for these candles on that, for the current weekly candle to actually reject that weekly order block and leave a wick to the high, which you can see on multiple of occasions when you have an order block. So long as the current candle actually closes below that order block, it is still a valid order block. Of course, you wouldn't use it without looking for confirmations again. However, as you can see price up here, you might be very tempted to highlight a point of interest. Of course, just work with me, it's not that, but and look for a long. But what must be said is actually, hold on guys, I won't go to the weekly, but on the 4-hour time frame, you can quite clearly see that we are trending above that weekly order block. And in fact, the only thing that I am at this time forecasting is that price closes below this order block, leaving a humongous wick to the high printed for next week for us to have a look at. So that is AU. Would I take a position on AU? Let's have a look to see what I would have liked to have seen, and it would have been a position up at these highs. It would have been a really nice position. Had multiple breaks of structure to the left. We've had the snap. Where's that snap come from? A very valid point of interest on that 15 minutes. So absolutely straight away, my appetite is increasing, and then we're just looking really for price to come back up into those areas. But as I said, it's getting on in the evening now, 5:30 Milano time, so pretty much wrapping up. Alert on EU, let's have a quick look to see what's going on EU. Okay, just to give me a little bit of a heads up, but even with that said, there's still a bit to be done on EU in terms of distance down to where I really want the price to come down to. So just skip my alerts back down and see how we go. I'll place this one just here to see what goes on. So that's EU, AU, DXY. I'm going to completely skip that for now. Hate that index at the moment. But nevertheless, again, beautiful on GE. We've had that snap, breaking structures to the left. Of course, it's not as clean as US dollar, USD, US dollar CAD, for good example. As you can see, that clear snap to the left. And as you zoom to the left, there's absolutely nothing there. So we're clearly in a trending market to the downside. The difference we have here on GU is you can't really identify clear breaks of, okay, you can identify clear breaks of structure to the left, but the overwhelming trend is most certainly to the upside as a result of this move making that higher high on a higher time frame. This is certainly just a higher low for a potential higher high. So taking the short after price taps into this low is very risky, as on the higher time frame you're simply expecting that. So it's one to be careful of. I was expecting price to actually come back up into this area before taking the short down, and then I flip my bias and go for the long position. But again, we've got that weekly 50 MA supporting that long, so a very nice trade. In terms of setup, higher time frame bias as well, looking very nice. Got that daily order block, refined 4, refined 15, and as I said, that 4-hour 50 MA supporting the trade. So the long position also looks very nice, but again, it's one that I definitely need to wait for some confirmation before taking that long position. And then GCAD, just a final up, just to give you guys some free analysis. GCAD have been quite nice, to be quite honest. Where are we on the higher time frame? Let me have a look. So 15-minute. In terms of 15, I probably would have taken this as an Asia range trade. I'll be very honest. I mean, I can see a clear snap in the market. Where is that snap coming from? If I simply use basic structure, basic analysis, so we're making higher highs at that point. After this potential higher low, we indeed was expecting a higher high of which was created. After this higher high, then we're expecting a higher low for a higher high continuation. So if this was not a higher low, we must then call it a low in the market created. The fact that a higher high was not created, this was a low, lower high, and then off we go to make a lower low. So where did that snap come from? As you can see, very much so in and around this area. Then it's simply down to highlighting a valid point of interest on that 15-minute time frame. Nothing over here where we would expect to find something, but here it is, that 15-minute time frame. I've refined that down to the 1, and I was hoping that Asia did not feel that the price would come up. I'd take that simply as an Asia range setup. It wasn't to be, so it wouldn't be now that I'd be looking to take that position. To be quite honest, I'd much prefer price to come up into these higher time frame areas for me to take a directional bias trade. Now for the lows, then quite a complex analysis. I'm definitely not going to go into that right now, but a lot for me to work with. We've got that 15-minute order block, but this is sort of just a standalone 15-minute order block towards the lows of a higher time frame daily. As we can see, price is very much so trending above that daily 50 MA. So ordinarily, I am looking for price to dip into it, as we've seen, and find an immediate rejection. From that rejection, I'm looking to find some form of confirmation for me to actually get in that position. But what I do require to happen is price actually dip into that 15-minute order block. So regardless of what's happening now, I have to be very disciplined that even if price rockets off and starts to break minute intraday breaks of structure, I need price to come to this 15-minute order block first and foremost before looking for a lower time frame break of structure before going along. So quite a complex analysis there, and then I'll be waiting for my highest probable entry criteria, of which I certainly am not going to tell you that for free, but nevertheless, Frgnt Marshall would definitely go over that for you. And then towards the rear, then I'd be looking for quite an aggressive position at the lows as a result of it being Friday, as a result of it being probably the last looking position on this pair for the week. So yeah, that's just a quick rundown. Hope you enjoyed that, guys. As you can see, I very much so enjoy charting and describing my actions. So all the very best. Wish you all the success in your trading journey, and do take care. Charles.